Um, yeah, that was me
Start over,
yelling
we
at my
good?
girlfriend to close the door of the bathroom because we were packing up to move on to the second
Yeah.
destination of the vacation. So this is going to be a
Yeah.
short
You're on.
episode. Thanks to
You.
Jason, who completely forgot about us having to do this and just went out for dinner. So, Jason,
I
you owe
did.
her a
Yeah.
dinner.
It was quite. It was. I do owe her dinner. I can handle that next time we're together. Yeah. I had a busy day of casting Rubet and then a crying baby in the background. I think during the last
Of
couple
course,
maps. So,
going
so
for the
that was fun.
Frankie
I was just.
playbook. Every time something goes wrong, just I have a baby.
Dude, I was looking
Just
over at Twitch chat.
can't really defeat that, can you?
I'm looking over at Twitch chat. I'm like, man, people are gonna fucking love my casting. They're gonna say something nice. I'm like, who's got the screaming fucking baby in the background? I'm like, I'm just like, damn it.
Uh,
But anyways, yeah, let's not get too much into small talk. You're on vacation. You stayed over in Australia after the event, so you're chilling. You're having a good time. You're going to Bali later today, so you've got more vacation.
yeah.
But obviously, a lot of shit's gone down, Yanko. I guess the first thing I want to ask you is, let's open up and just warm into it. What initial thoughts of CS2 at a tournament?
I think it was fine. I think for me, like the MR12, sure, it's not the same, but I still feel like in all the games that happened where there were comebacks and team coming back to win it, or a team starts a comeback and the other team closes it out, there's still opportunities for both things to happen, right? There's the opportunities to steal the game away, and there's opportunities to close the game out. Even if you make a mistake here and there, obviously, if you keep throwing rounds away, like we saw Complexity, how many fucking rounds with advantage did they throw on that T side of Ancient against FaZe, right? And even with all of that, they made it into OT. So that tells you there is opportunities there. It's just, I think the big thing for teams is going to be to understand, like to mentally, you've just been playing MR15 for so long, right?
Yeah.
And then you have...
I understand the timing of how the half plays out.
You're like up 11-6, right? Let's say, which is, like one round away from having at least overtime secured. But the reality is, if you lose like one gun round and one more, all of a sudden you have no more money and they're just one gun round away from like tying it up, right? And you're on the back foot. So I just think there's definitely going to be a period of time where players need to mentally make this adjustment. And, it feels like 11-6, let's say. It doesn't feel like it's 14-10. It feels more like it's 13-8, 13-7, right? Like you're not as far ahead as maybe you get the feel.
I didn't notice it so much watching Sydney, but I noticed today casting this online event that it comes quick and like it doesn't have that same feel to it. So I think it's not only players but even viewers and even to a certain degree, I mean the commentators getting used to like when you shift into like a different mode of what kind of emotion you're trying to hit, right? Because it comes faster. For sure. I've enjoyed MR12 though. I thought it was good. The games didn't seem like too short, It wasn't like an abrupt ending. It felt like the game had like enough time to like build into it and kind of, play out a story and deliver, cool moments as well.
Yeah, I mean, the 13-0 was done in like what, 22 minutes. That's
a nice day in the office for us.
But a couple of ones that are like with overtime were like 40 minutes, 40 something minutes, which is more like that does end up, a 16-13 overtime game. I mean, that's an MR15 game. So I think it was all right. There were a couple of games where it was, brutal for the team that kept getting reset and couldn't really get their economy going. But that was, for example, I think it was the Monty Complexity game in the groups where it was overpass, and it's like, well, Monty wins the round with pistols on CT, and now they have M4s and everything, and Complexity is on 1400 with just pistols, and then Monty just kind of fucks the round up, as NaVi plays too aggressive on mid and gets caught by the pistols and they lose the gun and lose. Well, you can't really blame MR12 on that when you just misplayed the round. Like, that was your opportunity to take control of the half and you just fucked it up multiple times. So I think it's just players have to realize how much more punishing it is to lose some of these rounds and how much more disciplined you have to be, how much every sort of gun matters in those scenarios.
Yeah, I know. Like, I think the real pain comes in when I'm watching or casting was like the CT sides that maybe you don't even like make a mistake and misplay it. You just get outplayed or someone hits a nice deagle shot, like winning the pistol and losing round 2. Like the economy on the CT side in MR12 is more punishing. Which we've kind of all, I think a lot of people have been saying from the get-go, is that like there's got to be some kind of economic buff for like CT side economy in this MR12, because it can just be so brutal before you get, like, sometimes it took like 5 rounds before you got guns out, like a full solid buy on the CT side in MR15, and that's half the half essentially.
Yeah, I think it is fucked. I think it should be probably 1900 across the board, the first loss bonus. And then even you could contemplate giving the CTs like 2400 after losing pistol, right? Because that way you can force and actually have like even an M4 dropped and or have like all the utility with some pistols and armor. Or if you do just one eco, you can have an op on 2-0 and have M4s with full utility, right? And I think also, I mean, people have been talking about the T-side economy. Even if you sort of lose pistol without a plant, then you're really fucked. If you try to force buy, it's not going to be great. And then even if you eco one, I mean, you still don't have an op and you have that 4400 buy, which is, again, not really ideal, but that's why the Ts have the opportunity to plant the bomb, which would change everything. And then, if they do plant and lose the round, well, now you have them all with Galils and armor, which is also sort of pretty strong right now. So yeah, I think we need at least a couple more tournaments to really see how it's going to play out, because you had in Sydney a lot of teams sort of playing CSGO in CS2, right? Which obviously is not going to be ideal. One of the few teams that was actually playing CS2 the whole time was Bad Boom, and that's why they made the playoffs, right? They were grouping more and just rushing and playing fast, and that was, for me, like for a team like that, that's going to elevate their performance, right? Because it's hard to get multi-kills at CT. The spraying with the M4 doesn't feel as great. That's why we saw a rise in the AUG. I'm going to say, like, I think people should start picking up more when they have the money, like the auto sniper. I think that could be a solution for some areas. Like, I think that's also pretty strong in this game. Auto shotgun, of course, for close range.
Did you get the sense when you were watching Sydney? I got it today when I was casting VP that teams and players were just kind of like, I mean, and, fair play, there hasn't been a whole lot of time between, the switch from CSGO to CS2 for some of the top squads. So maybe it makes sense. But did you get the sense that teams were just kind of, cycling through the old like CSGO way of playing in the new game? And it was just kind of like you could see where the deficiencies were with how CS2 actually plays? Yeah,
some of them definitely. I think G2 and Ants are the two big names that sort of did that. I didn't really catch Vitality because I arrived on day 2 and they were out on day 1. So I don't really know how they play. But I imagine it might have been something similar with all the things they have going on. And I think also it's fine for those people. I can't really blame like G2 and Ents. They had to play the showdown. So their thought process was, listen, let's just grind the game individually so we can at least, try to do things that way and make sure we're not just getting outgunned in games. But you'll have to wait for like the next time you see them to see are they and how they're able to adapt.
I feel like I noticed it more on an individual level of like watching how players like took certain angles or played certain situations where I was like, you're playing like it's CSGO still. Like you're playing like, like you don't have like the huge peekers advantage right now, where you're playing to like spray down a couple where that's a little bit more difficult to do on like an individual level. When I watched VP today, I was like, you guys are all like in CSGO mindset.
Yeah, that's just hard. I understand why they do it, though. It's like hard. You've just been, fundamentally, that's like a sound thing you're trying to do. But in the way the game plays out right now, you're at a disadvantage. And even JL was talking to us on the desk and saying, I find myself like holding for 2 seconds and I'm like, oh, I have to move. Like, right? I have to be the one peeking. Otherwise, I'm going to get wrecked, which sucks that it is that way right now. Hopefully it gets fixed, because even the ops are getting wrecked. It just feels the velocity on the peak is a bit too high, so it's hard for the oppers to react. And sure, we can talk about adjusting it and being more mobile with the op and like going for that combat topping style, but that's you just trying to make the best out of a shit situation. In reality, the op is meant to be for holding long range angles, right, and punishing people who are just wide peeking you with no utility. that's the point of the gun, and you need to find a way in which it is viable and is
nerfed
able
its
to
effectiveness in that situation.
yeah
So it's kind of weird.
by too much. So I think even complexity, they had a little bit of things here and there, and that was mostly as tournament progressed, which were CS2 related, but they were just playing super like sound team Counter-Strike. Their macro decisions were really good. CT sides were really strong because they always kind of did something at the start of the round, like went for something, and then if it doesn't really pan out the way they thought it did, they would still be proactive in the mid round and try to regain space somewhere else. And they were really disruptive and in their opponents' faces. That's like G2 did play like shit, but it was also complexity sort of just capitalizing on that, right?
What did you think? Because like one thing that I really enjoyed watching it, and maybe I'm enjoying watching it just because of the novelty of it, and I know teams haven't adopted and acclimated it like completely into their style of play and their decision making. But the nades blowing open smoke mechanic, I think, is really cool. Actually, I think it's been like I had a lot of fun watching it at Sydney, like watching teams. Like I think like one of the ones that sticks out in my head is like it was complexity playing on the CT side of Anubis, and the team was executing on A, but like they dropped like a lurk smoke to cross over towards like the waterfall and the pillar, and complexity just like blew it open and saw like killed two players that were just trying to slowly quietly creep to it. Like that was a cool mechanic. Like today I saw the Mirage execute with the standard walls on stairs and for jungle and for con, and nades blowing it open, so you're kind of finding a pocket where you can try and catch them crossing to the site, so those walls aren't just like it's not just pure retake.
Yeah,
I think it was a cool mechanic to watch in play.
I think it's fun. It's another addition to the game, and people are going to start figuring out how to combo it. Complexity had a nice one on Anubis when they were T side, and they blew up the mid smoke with a flash, and then they kept pushing, and there was another flash, and they managed to catch Nico, for example, in one round. We broke it down, and it's going to come down to like sort of having a setup in case people just come, and then also in case they do smokes. Okay, one of the guys is going to pull out an nade, and the other is going to be holding or anti-flash, and then they're going to time it. I think it's still way too early for us to see the elaborate combinations. Right now it's just stuff on the fly, but I think it will get more intricate as time goes on. We saw even FaZe, for example, on Nuke. People are now using the two smoke wall between garage and main, right? So what FaZe did in Ents, like I think even the first gun round, was they threw him, and then Ents spent 2 HEs sort of to get the info and see if anyone's crossing and a molly, and then FaZe just sort of re-smoked that after, and then were able to, they went for an A split, but at that point Ents didn't have any more nades to gather information. And let's say probably next time Ent is going to say, okay, if someone does that against us, we're going to do a flash play on the second wave, right? Like to guarantee that they can't just that we get some information. But that was already one of the little plays that we saw happen, or the one where Twists blew up the smoke but was running bathroom, so
juked it.
And then just used that as bait for the player to hold the smoke while he was flanking him. So even in the early days we saw a couple of small plays like that, but definitely it's pretty cool. And I think people will see they need to figure out how to balance it, because you have guys like Assad saying it's a complete waste of money and potential like damage that you could do with the nade to just keep blowing it up for smokes. And I'm sure that players have been overdoing it to some extent in Sydney, but that's to be expected, right? It's this new thing, this new mechanic
Everyone's
that you have, and you're testing it. You're trying to figure out, right? And then you'll probably say after you finish the tournament, watch the games, we wasted a lot of HEs, right? Because also if you carry the HE, that means you can't carry an extra flash, and would that have helped you more in some late round situation than the smoke? I think something that's going to be a little bit overblown is the use of the HE to negate like a smoke diffuse, because like that happened to Hooksy in some of the 1v1s, although he kind of played like shit, but that doesn't even matter, because if you think about it, like a guy taps it, right? He throws a smoke and taps it, so you need to pull out the HE, be in some sort of a position where that's gonna come and pop the smoke, and then you have to peek to kill the guy, but he might not be diffusing at all. So if you just do all of that, he tapped it, you're spending this time to do that, and then
Expose yourself as
he's just holding you, and then he kills you, and then he defuses. Like I think it's going to be super situational when, like, there's not enough time for him to tap it, and then you can guarantee that you'll see him with the HE, right? Like,
yeah, or blowing it open like right when the smoke goes down on the bomb, so he can't just like rush to it out of the gate. Like you might be able to catch someone like looking for the bomb when the smoke goes open like immediately.
But if there's a lot of time on the bomb, I don't think it's going to help you all too much. I think you'll just have to play it normally, where you sort of see if he's hiding behind the smoke, and then if he's not, you just have to spam it. But if you want to pull out the nade and it comes back, he's already defused the bomb.
All right, let's tackle this a little bit because we have a lot of news and obviously not a lot of time. I guess let's start with the liquid one. We'll leave like the juicy heroic stuff for the end. This new rumored liquid lineup, pretty crazy. I like it a lot. Set to bring Zeus back as coach, Twist back as a player, keeping NaVi, keeping Yakinder, and then Cadian reported to be coming in as the in-game leader. And then on top of all of that, bringing in Skulls from Pain with a little bit of a buyout. So Yakinder, Cadian, Skulls, NaVi, and Twist is reported to be the next Team Liquid lineup.
Yeah, it's just wild, isn't it? I mean, especially for Twist. He even tweeted out, like, life is confusing at some point, like, after the Sydney win. So is he like right now contemplating about, should I even leave this team? Like, that's what I tweeted out. Is like, maybe he's having second thoughts. And then if the other players didn't know, I would suspect Carrigan knew, and that like Twist talked to Carrigan about it, since he's like, sort of leader, captain, GM of that team, really all in one. Yeah. But it might have caught some of the other players off guard. It seemed like it from social media, especially Robs, for example. But at that point, do you even like let him come back if he was like about to leave and then you won and now he doesn't want to leave? I mean, how do you sort of repair that relationship on a personal level? I know they've been together for a long time, but could you even do that? Do you want to do that if you're, the rest of the FaZe team? So that's one thing. But let's just say that, Twist is leaving and is going to back, and let's talk about this rumored liquid lineup. I think it's obviously on paper, it looks really sick because you have a strong combination of players. You wonder, maybe Skulls and his English, is it good enough? I would imagine that it's fine enough for them to be able to.
Yeah, it's good. I've spoken to him at the RMR. He did an interview on the desk, so it's good enough to have a desk conversation. But in terms of micro communications in milliseconds, I'm not sure. But that'll just be a learning curve.
So for me, it's like a couple of things. It's first, can Yakinder allow himself to just be a fucking player, like shut his mouth and shoot people in the head, right? Because I think has a bit maybe too high of an opinion of himself and is putting too much on his plate, and that hasn't really worked out. They haven't like played amazingly well, or was he like, he fell off individually too? So I think if he just focuses on playing and can be that can opener and that point man that we saw, especially in this meta where so far peaking is really, really strong, then that can be really good for them, because you have NaVi, who's a super chill, like great guy to have on the lurk and close out rounds. And then you have Twists and Skulls too, who are really good mechanically. And we all know how good Cadian is as a leader. But here's the thing as well, right? At least until recently, he had the complete trust of his teammates, right? Like he was the heart and soul of that team, and he was like pushing everyone forward, and he was the leading guy emotionally as well. So, and everyone bought into that. But now you would come into a team that does have some strong-minded individuals like Yakinder, like I guess Twist to some extent, also proven winners like NaVi and Twist, who won the Grand Slam. Twist also winning the major, so it's a different breed of players. So can you get them to buy into your philosophy in the same way?
I think you can. Well, because I'll tell you why. Just from personality wise, like Twist is someone I think who kind of wants to have a leader. He wants to be led. He wants to have that authority figure. He very much is like understanding of like kind of like the significance of that role. And I think he's more than willing to be under the leadership and kind of the, I guess, tutorage to a certain degree of someone else. And Cadian taking those reins, he'd be fine with it. Naf as well is someone who's always gone with the flow, probably to his detriment at various points in his career, where he has been the quiet guy who's willing to adapt and take whatever's left, whatever roles, whatever spots are left that nobody wants to play. He's just an easygoing guy, as we all know. And then, Skulls, I don't think would make any waves. The one thing would be Yakinder. I imagine Yakinder and Cadian would kind of butt heads a little bit here and there. But that is something that would get kind of ironed out over time. And that's where you have, the leadership and the experience of someone like Zeus in the coach role to kind of help facilitate that. So I think I like this lineup a lot. I mean, there's certainly some pitfalls, but I think it makes sense when you look at it role-wise and personality.
Let's just put something out there. It's way fucking better than what they just had. Okay.
Yeah.
And we did say at the time, like, we're giving Daps the benefit of the doubt with Rainwaker that, maybe they found a diamond in the rough. They just found a piece of coal, really, from a mine in Bulgaria. And then also, I don't know what the deal is with Patsy. I guess he probably couldn't get adjusted to maybe the English communication and the different culture and whatnot. I mean, felt like he was a good player, but maybe just can't make it work in this sort of a lineup.
I imagine. Well, I mean, there's also the other thing that this allows to happen, right? Which is the return to the North American qualifier for the major, or not North American, the Americas qualifier for the major. And if you keep Patsy, then you have to make a decision. And if you keep Patsy, you're probably sticking to the EU side of things. I guess, like, look, we're talking about this from the Counter-Strike angle, and I think both of us are probably a little bit more interested in this lineup than the previous one, for obvious reasons. But from an organizational perspective, like, I think this is actually a huge home run. I would question, as someone who is, cautiously optimistic about their swap into the last lineup, where it's like, was that really necessary? If you're going back to this principle of wanting to be in the Americas RMR and you're kind of picking up players with that in mind, why was that not a priority a year ago? 6 months ago, whenever those pickups happened.
I guess,
you know what I mean? Like, it feels like we kind of have just gone through this past whatever period it's been since that roster change happened, and we're kind of like, that seemingly wasn't a necessary change to have happened,
I guess maybe more the opportunities are here now that weren't available back then, getting Cadian as an in-game leader, the opportunity to get twists, and sort of just being willing to pay the buyout for Skulls. I also wonder...
well, ironically, that actually, this might not even be possible if they didn't go that route 6 to 8 months ago, whatever it was. When you think that Elige was going to have one of the higher salaries on that team, Nitro probably had a relatively hefty salary, probably more than what he was worth in terms of coming. He probably had a big contract when he left Liquid and went to Valorant, and then probably still had a big contract in Valorant and probably came back and got something similar to it. So you actually probably unloaded a lot of numbers off the books that allow you to make this change now, allow you to go for the Skulls buyout, allow you to pay Cadian a little bit more money to make sure he comes, whatever it might be. Twist is, you have all these opportunities now because of the money you've offloaded from some of the previous stars and legacy players and franchise players of the team, just a little bit of a while away.
And also just feel bad for OC in some way. I feel like he can be a good player and he can deliver, but just in this sort of a scenario, he gets the short end of the stick. So yeah, I'm not sure where he could land. I don't really think Complexity was like thinks he would be a massive upgrade over Halzerk. Like, I don't think they would change that necessarily.
He could do something like, there's a few NA teams now that you could think he could go. Like EG might be an opportunity. Would they really want to drop Junior for another offer? Forsaken's a team out there making waves. That new M80 squad. Yeah, Nouns, like there are.
Yeah, or M80. Yeah.
The nice thing for OC, is you're going to have to drop down to a different level of play, obviously, and different opportunities in different tournaments. But any team you join, you are ostensibly going to improve. You are going to be sought after by pretty much any team that is not Liquid, that is not Complexity.
Yeah.
in theory.
And where does that lead us? Yeah, and I also think, I mean, this is just 1 second. I accidentally turned this up. Let me lower myself down a little bit. Also, it's not, I mean, confirmed that KDN is going to Liquid, right? We also heard...
None of this is official.
Yeah. We also heard rumors that, NIP, he was close to signing for NIP. NIP just batched Hampus and said that they're looking for an in-game leader. They brought Astag back, which is like a surprise that he was like on the bench for so long. It felt like he could have been a piece in some team at some time. Potentially. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see if that's really what happens, because the NIP squad, I guess, if KDN were to join them, would be, yeah, what do you do like with Hetrick then? It's like Aztec, Ball, and Config, Hetrick, Rez. It's like Brolan or Rez are out at that point. Then you have 3 Danes.
I can't imagine a world where KDN would go to NIP over Team Liquid, like for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, that's true.
But like, I think if he makes that decision to go to NIP over Liquid, I think that is a bad career move. Like, I just straight up,
like we saw with anyone who went to NIP, just in general, seems like a bad career move at the time. Threat is back there as GM for like the 7th time in 2 years. So.
And yeah, that team's never been able to get it going. I think the caliber of this roster that Liquid is trying to put together is way higher. And just from even the organizational perspective, all this shit that NIP's had to deal with versus Liquid, that I think, players anyone who's played under the Liquid banner or multiple banners, including Liquid, will tell you Liquid's probably one of the top orgs you can play for, one of the best organizations you can play for in the entire ecosystem. Just like for a variety of reasons, like Liquid is the better option. And I imagine Liquid's going to flex that a little bit. I would if I was GM, if I was part of the Liquid, or I'd be flexing that all day long. So yeah, all this is reported, but obviously really cool potential there. All right, let's chat a little bit about the heroic stuff, because this was wild. Let's do this, because I saw this tweet and got this news literally 20 minutes before we went live with Roobet Games today.
And I saw it right as I was about to go to bed.
That's what I was going to ask you, is when did you see this? And you probably it probably woke you right up.
Yeah, I just had it, and I think right before that I took a couple of sleeping pills to make sure I sleep through the night, or maybe right after it. But I was in it long enough to read Heroic's statement and put a couple of tweets out. So let me just find it so I don't have to. All right, Heroic is sad to announce that Stone and Yabi are temporarily removed from the starting lineup, blah, blah, blah. After Pro League, Stone and Yabi initiated a push to replace KDN, which came unexpectedly to both KDN and Heroic's management team. Mediation efforts were attempted, but the situation was brought to an ultimatum where Heroic had to choose between KDN and the rest of the team. Stone and Yabi agreed that if Heroic let KDN go, they would extend their contracts. With clear intentions from Stone and Yabi to extend, Heroic amicably allowed KDN to pursue a new path. The same day Stone and Yabi were presented with their new contracts, they communicated having made future plans with Astralis. Their Heroic contracts had almost 10 months until expiration. While handling the short-term uncertainty and planning for a long-term solution, Heroic's ambition is to bring Stone and Yabi back. Our performance staff have made a plan to support their potential return to the starting lineup. We are open to discussing transfers to organizations with a professional approach and an understanding of our players' market value. We aim to find a good path forward with a positive solution for everyone involved. Now, first things first.
Yeah, let's get a couple things out of the way.
I fucking love that Heroic made this statement, because some guy, in lightheartedly told me, oh, they threw their players like under the bus. How could they do that? It's like, no. This is exactly what you need to do when this happens, because you owe it to the fans. Like, all of a sudden you had this team that was like top 2 or top 3, always in the playoffs. Now it's like KDN is like going to leave, and I was Stone and Yabi, like, the team is falling apart. So the fans sort of deserve an explanation. What the hell is going on with our team, right? And even more so where now this is all allegedly, in a sense of this is Heroic's statement in their POV. We saw Stone put out something vague like, what do they say? As always, truth will prevail. Sure. But he did nothing to dispute the claims. He didn't say, oh, they're lying. Oh, this is not true, right? Or whatever. So in light of this, it would seem that whatever, after Pro League, the team was disillusioned with Cadian's leadership and they didn't want to play with him anymore, which came as a surprise to both Cadian and Heroic. And then when
and the entire world,
yeah,
to be honest with
and then when it was between Cadian and everyone else, Heroic decided to go with everyone else, which, to be honest, I think we even said at the time on the podcast, I would stick with Cadian over those 4 guys. But, even just logistically, that might have been impossible. So they're like, okay, if you really can't play, you won't play for the guy anymore. We will let him pursue other options. You guys sign your extensions and let's figure out what's going to happen. And then what I believe happened was, as, Cadian was allowed to explore his other options, they couldn't figure out who to get and how to set up the team because you lost your primary hopper and in-game leader. So you need to find either just an hopper and someone else to in-game lead, or you need to find just an in-game leader and someone else needs to pick up the op, which was rumored might be Stone doing one or the other, or even both. And it felt like in that whole scenario, they just couldn't really find a good solution. And that's where good old Astralis, taking advantage of the situation as they do, which is, to be honest, that's fair play to them, just sort of seeing potentially hey, maybe we can upgrade our roster. Now, I don't know how and what the rules are necessarily. When can you approach? You're not supposed to approach players directly as an org. You need to, if you talk to them and they show interest, you have to go to the org immediately and say, hey, we'd like to have a conversation about these 2 guys. If we can. And
there's a lot of Twitter lawyers debating that point. And
what's the consensus?
I don't know. There's a whole debate about 6 months left in the contract, 8 months left in the contract, 10 months left. But I mean, look, let's be real. There's no body in Counter-Strike or in esports that is really governing that. That's not there. So the correct answer in my mind at the moment, without any legal knowledge, is it's all fair game. It might be scummy, but it's all fair game. And maybe there's some unspoken gentleman rules between GMs or something that I don't know about, but it's all fair game. And I think if you're Astralis and you have that opportunity, you're gonna dip your toes in the water. I think really the kind of burden of responsibility falls on the players to conduct their business in the way that they can, live with and go to sleep at night. And if they feel this is so, I mean, look, I want to say this. We've already gone a little deep, but I just want to say this as well. I think it's easy to see the press release from Heroic. And when that is the first piece of information you have on this situation, you're going to look at the situation through the lens that Heroic has provided. So I think it's very easy to vilify players. From my experience, nothing is really, players don't conduct themselves in a nefarious evil intentioned manner to screw the team or screw the org. They're kind of rolling through their life, really making these decisions as best for them. And everything else is kind of secondary.
But I'll tell you what it most likely is. I
just want to avoid a world where these guys become just social pariahs, I think,
bro, I don't give a fuck if they become social pariahs or not. Especially, you remember that I Am Rio documentary and Stone and Cadian and all that bullshit. They're they're brothers,
so much more
and all of that. I think it's just about taking responsibility for your actions. I really believe it's okay, they didn't want to play with Cadian, but then let's say maybe they had a few options for players they wanted to get. Let's say they want to get Blame. Okay, that sounds really stupid because he just re-signed, but I don't know. And then Heroic was well, we can't get these 2 names that you guys have given us. Imagine they said oh, we want either Blame or Device. And if you get me Device, Stone is going to in-game lead. If you get me Blame, Stone is going to op, right? Or something like that. That's unreasonable, to be honest. And then after they couldn't get some of the players, and Heroic came back with other names or other suggestions that they probably didn't, they felt like it would be a major downgrade. They were like, fuck this. Let's just, see if we can then go somewhere else that makes more sense for us. And that is a bitch ass move. Like sort of not just leaving your org and your other two teammates hanging out to dry.
Yeah, if the heroic side of things is the way it actually played out, that is a really, really scummy play on the part of the players. Whether it was their intention or not, that's a really rat move to just be like, we need to kick this guy or else we're not playing. We don't want to be under his leadership. And you've kicked him? That's great.
Also,
by the way, we're gone as well.
This is where you need to be transparent as well. If you're mostly Stone, Yabi doesn't really, matter as much, I feel like, in this whole situation, because, bro, where were you in all these big games that you guys have lost?
Yeah.
Right? With your 0.9 rating or whatever it was, So if you feel, because that's like one of the main criticisms. So maybe if he feels like, well, it was because of how we played and how Cadian didn't want to adjust or whatever, that I couldn't play better, couldn't deliver the numbers, go out and say it now. Take responsibility and say why was it that you felt like, why didn't you want to play with Cadian? Tell us, let us know what and sort of make it a way where your actions make sense. Because what it looks like now is, first I don't want to say backstab Cadian if you just went to his face and told him, hey, we don't want to play with you. But, you got rid of him in that way. Then you fucked your org and your remaining teammates as well by leaving them out to dry after you initiated the removal of Cadian. That just makes you a fucking asshole. And it's hurting your reputation. Also, so the only way to repair that is to say your side of the story. You can't just be silent about this.
No, but like I can also understand not saying something in the moment today when like no matter what they said, people were going to be against them. But it better come out. Like if they really want to clear the name and
fast,
not have this follow them, they need to come out with like their side of what happened. It's turned into a wild situation.
We also, I even tweeted that last night. Imagine like Borup and Stare, just because I imagine those are the two names that, because Buzz is putting better numbers and he's like baits with device and whatnot. But imagine those two guys just sitting there like,
yeah. Oh fuck. So
what?
What's going on, guys?
Who were they actually? Were they supposed to replace? Like how awkward is going to be for Astralis to play their games now? I'm not
gonna lie. I didn't even think about it from their perspective. Not even once.
Yeah,
that's that's a really good point. Because like that's actually like two teams that are just like, oh shit.
Because they played the Shanghai tournament, right? The Asia Championship, which is at the start of November. They also have qualified for the fall finals, as has Heroic. But if their lineup changes so drastically, like what happens there? I don't know.
Yeah,
so
that's pretty crazy.
It's so much awkward stuff that's been going on with both lineups in that sense.
It's so funny because let's even go back, because I don't think we've done an episode. If we take this from like step number one, because I don't think we did an episode since the Cadian announcement that he was getting dropped or replaced.
We haven't
for replacement, because it happened during Sydney, if I remember correctly. But even that was just like, what? Are you guys crazy? Like that seemed like, even if you take that in isolation,
we did talk about it.
Today,
that was pre-Sydney, I think.
Did we?
Yeah.
Was it?
But in any case, you can say it again.
I mean, that's such a crazy roster change to do that makes no sense in my mind. Like, I thought it would go bad. I didn't think it would go this bad this quickly.
But that's the problem. It's because the star players turned on you. Like, if you just needed to replace Tessus and Shush, that would be fine, right? Like, and leave Cadian and the core. But if Stone and Yabi are the problem, well, it's kind of hard to replace the two of them and get like two really good players, because it's just tough. And also for Cadian, I'm not surprised. You just say, fuck all of you. I made you. You guys fucking suck without me. So you don't want me? Fine. I'm going to go somewhere else. I think he's a proven leader. The only issue is like how much, he's opping, right? Can it like, but this change is then great for him, right? The oppers aren't as important as they were in CSGO. So I think, what else did we have? Yeah, the Vitality situation. That happened after our last episode with Zonic and Lars and everything. And then I will say briefly, it's like...
No, we covered that.
We did?
Yeah, but go on.
I think I was just going to say, it's funny, like, with all of that, it's like, oh yeah, the project and this and that. Bro, it's about the bag, and that's fine. It's fine. Go get the bag. It's a life-changing bag, but don't sit here and tell me if they paid you like a third of what they offered you that you would still go there because it's a challenging project, right? Like, I get it all. Yeah. There's no need to make it also sound like differently. It's fine. We're going there. The incentives were great. And we want to, on top of that, try to do something different. And it is a different challenge. And I agree with all of that and respect all of that. But you can't say that money wasn't the deciding factor. Like, you can't say that. That's just like bullshit.
Also the optics of it when you go in and people are going, you know what we didn't talk about? This is what it is. We talked about the move of Zonic and Lars over there. We didn't talk about like the new rostered or rumored rosters that were going to come out of it. But that is the ultimate, like, optics nightmare where it's like, yeah, I actually just really think this is a great challenge. And then all the reports come out and it's like, Falcons is targeting Nico, m0NESY, actually anyone whose buyout is over $700,000, we will be targeting them.
We want to break all the records for the buyouts.
Yeah. It's just like that alone. Because I mean, I think I even read in the interview as well with Zonic where he was like, I'm going to let the players who are currently there, like, I'm going to give them a chance and give them their shot and see what happens. And maybe he meant that more in the sense that he would be looking to replace people over time rather than out of the gate. But literally, if you come in and out of the gate, you're like, hey, Nico, m0NESY, let's come over here. Like that it just doesn't work. Like those kinds of like those PR sides of things just don't really lie.
I mean, here's the thing, right? Like those changes might happen. Players might move. Like, Falcons have a big appetite, but that's not an easy thing to do, to get a player like Nico, right? Not only do you have to see how much you need to pay for him, is like, why would he leave a team like G2, right? For a team like Falcons, who also doesn't have spots in tournaments next year. Right, like they don't have they're not a partner team for next year. At least that still matters. So you might have to like miss Katowice, miss Cologne, miss Blast. Like you're very limited in tournaments you can play. And for a player like Nico, who is, at the peak of his career really, and is just looking to amass trophies, that might not be as lucrative for him as people think. But it's like a domino effect. Like if one piece falls, a lot of them can fall after it. Like there's a scenario in which G2 might not change anything, or like no one might leave the roster.
Right.
And there's a scenario in which you might have to fucking replace 3 players. We've also heard reports that Vitality has their eye on Hunter.
Yeah.
In that sense, right?
Everyone's. I think.
Because Falcons has their eye. Because the Falcons have their eye on Magus. Like Zonic wants to move him over. Like they have. I think he has a lot of faith in him as a player and knows what he can bring to a team, right? Like we've even heard them like eyeing a couple of Ants guys with Snappy to lead the team, and then potentially if they like want m0NESY and can't get him, getting some Pious. Like these are some fucking wild,
right?
Changes. Then again, like
aggressive.
It might not happen. Like Ants might not lose a single player. They might just stick together. You don't know that. Like there's so many hurdles that you need to get through before you're able to do that. But that would be wild. Like a roster of Nico, Magus, Snappy, Boros, and then m0NESY or some Pious, either whoever you get out of the two. I think, they're a bit different players stylistically, but they're both like really fucking good.
The reports I read, which I think are kind of cool, or not even reports, I guess, just like kind of like the more trusted of the leakers, or I don't even know what to call them, to be honest with you. Leakers makes them sound bad. I don't really have any judgment. It's just the people who seem to be accurate more often than not. I've seen them. They've said like m0NESY wants to stick with Nico like wherever he goes, which I think is such like a really cool Like, I don't know, that seems like a really cool partnership that would be cool to like watch develop. Those two guys enjoying playing with each other, and probably honestly no better example I think for Modesty than having someone like Nico like take him under his wing long term across teams. But it's hard to imagine a world in which G2 lets both of them go. Like they just like, what do you do after that? Especially if Hunter's getting all the offers from teams. Like you have to have something with which to rebuild around.
You get Simple. Did you just see? I saw this on Reddit. It was from 3 hours ago, where like Overdrive is talking on his stream or whatever, and that like
I saw that
NaVi might be looking to move on from Simple, which is like, bro, I don't really know what's going on with Simple. He just didn't like he didn't get to Sydney, and then I saw something about him talking on his stream that he might not attend the next event either. It's like, I guess like I said this, bro. I think it was a year ago that I said this. I think Simple needs to take like 6 months off.
Yeah,
he needs to take a season off of.
He needs a device
competing, right? And just sort of figure shit out for himself a little bit. You know, he doesn't have to. He can play CS individually a little bit just so he sort of like stays in shape. He doesn't even have to do that, but just like sort of figure out, hey, what it is that you want to do, right? Like, do you want to keep playing this game competitively,
and, I mean,
in the way it is, or have you had enough? Are you tired of like all the fucking bullshit? You just want to stream or fuck off or do whatever it is that you want to do. But I think like with
but pick it, select it.
Yeah, exactly. Like with how it's been, I think it's been unfair to the org and to the different teammates he's had over the last couple of years, right? Like, it's an amazing player, the best player we've had in CSGO. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, that only gives you so much credit, really, before you need to get your shit together.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think I mean, it's obviously going to make the team worse, but I almost feel like that'd be such a baller play from the organization to do that, to like send that kind of a message. And I'm so happy I'm not the one who has to make that decision. But like, I think there's like some real validity in the sense that like he's maybe not as much of a net positive moving forward, trying to sort of rebuild as we'd give him credit for, because he is the best player. So yeah, I think I'd cheer that decision on if it actually happened. Just because like if someone's preventing your development, like at a certain point, no matter how good somebody is, like if you're still having, like imagine how bad you have to be the best player in the world and still give the feeling like you're having a net impact on the team. If that's the reasoning for it, which I assume it would be. That'd be crazy. I have a good one for you right before you take off, because we're coming up to your point where you got to check out. This is another Talking Counter. Well, actually, it's not really a Talking Counter exclusive, but it's kind of. Just 5 minutes ago, Josh Nissan won Steel. On the 10-year mark in January 2025, I will be allowed to participate at Valve partnered events. Against all odds, I've never given up. I'm ready to be defined by something new and more positive.
Is that
so? He's saying,
is he trolling or is he real?
Next year. No. He's real. I spoke to him a few days back, and he mentioned that he was having. He messaged me when he started having these conversations with Valve to try and go for it. So he's dead serious. This is for real.
That's awesome, man. I'm happy for him. He's gone through a lot of shit. All those players did. Like, they did a bad thing. There's no mistake about it. But I feel like the punishment was super severe, and props to him for still sticking. I mean, obviously he was like in Valorant for a bit and that sort of a thing, like just trying to go pro where he's allowed to compete in the biggest tournament. So props to him for persevering and just, as he said, against all odds, I've never given up. So obviously something that NA needs a lot is someone, a veteran and experienced team game leader.
He can actually be immediately useful to, again, like pretty much it feels like anyone outside of Liquid or Complexity. And for teams in North America that realistically don't have a chance of making the major within the next year, your M80s, I mean, they might have an outside puncher's chance, but like, why not pick him up and use him for this, this year to get better? And then 2025 hits and set your goal of saying, we have 1 year. We have 14 months at this point. You know, like let's get the ball rolling and let's start heading in that direction for 14 months from now to be ready to go. That would be really cool. But also, it had to have just been. I would imagine his persistence with it is probably one of the things that made Valve feel comfortable that he's sincere about wanting to come back because he wants to compete. And that's been my like never ending opinion of Josh since I've known him, which I think I met him in like 2016. Was he made that bad decision, but the most painful part for him is he's not able to actually compete at these events. And just happy he's unbanned, to be honest with you. That's sweet. We should make a Counter-Strike holiday. It should be a yearly Counter-Strike holiday.
Yeah.
Josh Nissan Day.
For the release of Josh
Back
Nissan.
into the wild.
All right. I guess. I think that's
anything else big that comes to your brain?
Nothing that I want to discuss, Jason.
Is there any safe for work stories you can tell from Sydney? I missed that event. Any shenanigans go down? Any
nothing to. I mean, it was way better because this time we were central, right? Like before, we were in Olympic Park, so we were in the city. So we got, just the usual couple of KBBQ nights, some karaoke in there. A few times I went back to the Baxter Inn. Of course, had to check that out.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Some of the usual stuff. Yeah, for the listeners from last episode, my girlfriend actually did make it. Well, I arrived on Tuesday, and then Tuesday evening she sent me a message. Hey, I got the visa, so I just booked her a flight straight away. She came in, everything worked out in the end. So that was awesome. And yeah, it's going to be nice to just wind down a little bit and chill.
Yeah, enjoy yourself. You deserve it.
All right.
Well,
cheers, bro.
GG's, everybody.